If you have clicked on this video, it means that you want to build a high-performing content team from scratch. And you've tried to scale by doing more yourself, or you've even hired someone in the past, but it just didn't move the needle forward because they didn't have a specific purpose inside of the team. And that's exactly where you're stuck. So why am I credible for this? I have generated over $200,000 in aggregate client revenue, with my team making over 1,000 pieces of content across me and my clients. And also I was able to post consistently myself while spending less than 4 hours per week on content. So this is my promise to you. If you're a coach or consultant or even an agency owner, the real bottleneck isn't really the effort, it's the lack of a structured team that amplifies the input that you do every single week. So in this video, I'll break down how to build a production team alongside the 3 big hires that you would need in order to scale up your content and streamline the process overall, and of course, speed up the growth of your brand, which is the operator, the strategist, and the architect. So you can finally stop being the bottleneck in your own business and actually start building leverage that you would need in order to scale up to $50 to $100K per month. Now, let's first set the foundation for the content team. First things first, you're gonna need a production team, meaning these are the people that actually move in the day-to-day. These are the editors, the social media managers, the VAs, and occasionally CSMs or fulfillment roles if you are a content agency like myself. At this stage, the goal isn't really to scale much. It's really to just get the consistency down and to remove you from the day-to-day operations and allow you to have more time to do higher leverage tasks. But the thing is, you can't just hire these people and expect them to do good, right? They cannot run in blind, so they would need the clarity, the SOPs, and the clear tasks that they would need to do. You don't need to give them this like grand vision of, oh bro, we're gonna be the biggest company in the next 6 months to a year. All they really need is the right SOPs in order for them to actually give you the outputs that they would need, right? They just need the instructions. So what the production team should own, it should only be 2 to 3 outputs max when it comes to the tasks that they are given, right? If you give them everything, you eventually get nothing done, right? So for example, you can give video editing and uploading to one person. You can give repurposing long forms into shorts as one task for a specific clipper. You can give posting and scheduling even one thing for your social media managers. Just have a specific task that these people would consistently do in order for them to get better at it first, and then you can maybe consider giving them more tasks or something that they could do outside of the current scope and move them up into the team. But the thing is, if you give them everything and you try to have them do all of these different tasks the moment they join in, you won't be able to actually train them properly because they're too busy doing all of these tasks. And they're not getting the proper feedback, I assume, because you're giving feedback across 5 different tasks instead of focusing on just one thing and getting that right. So in order to make your production team effective, you should give them the definition of what done is, something that is approved, and what is excellent is going the extra mile. So don't just say, okay, go ahead and edit this video. Actually define what success means in order for them to continue striving for that. So details such as front-loading the editing quality into the first 30 seconds, which is the hook of whatever video that is. So that's for long form. Of course, if it's short form, it would be the first 5 seconds. But having even that small detail allows them to know where most of their efforts should go into. Next would be that the captions must be readable on mobile and there should be 0 typos. If you have worked with a specific, I'm not even going to say the country, but if you've worked with a specific country's editors before, they are notorious for typos. So you need to get this dialed in the first time that they go into the team, right? Typos are a no-go. You should actually go ahead and reduce their pay or cut their pay every time they're not able to stick to that rule. And eventually, of course, tell them that if you continue to create these typos, you will be let go. Next would be what export settings you're looking for, the file structure or the file naming, and the checklist that they should have before they even go ahead and bring it for quality checking. And the easiest way to do this is to just set the tone at the start, as I said, and that could be through a call or even a Loom recording if you plan to continually hire people, for example, like an agency again. Like we have Loom SOPs that the editors can just go through. They know exactly what they would need to do from day one, assuming that they actually watch it through. And if you're hiring A players, then they would watch it through. Next would be to build a single SOP per outcome, not per tool. So a lot of people think that in order to create a good SOP, it should be how to use DaVinci or how to use CapCut, how to use Canva, whatever that may be. you should have a specific SOP depending on the output that you want. So a good SOP would be something like how we edit this specific style of reel. So for us, we have 4 different styles that we use. We have the common one, which is just the aesthetic style that you would see on my page. The other one would be the consulting calls. How do you actually clip those up? So we have different SOPs for each video type, and that allows each editor to know how they want each video to be edited, not just like follow this for every single one. Because of course, depending on what style you're going for and depending what format you're going to do, it's always going to be different every single time. So this is an example of our internal SOP. It just goes over all of the inspiration that we take, the music, the parameters for the specific editing platform that they might be using, the captions, the visuals, everything is here, right? And of course, they're not gonna get it first time, but this also speeds up the ramp-up process of someone from getting hired, getting onboarded, and doing good from day one. And this allows people to just go through the process of learning how it is to be in the team much quicker than having to go through a bunch of feedback loops that you didn't need to do in the first place. And the last thing would be to add a weekly output scoreboard. And a monthly output recap. So these operators typically thrive with a visible target, right? A number that they should hit every single week and every single month. So for us, when it comes to the content team, the KPIs that we track are the long form videos that we have posted, the shorts that we have repurposed, what's the average turnaround time when it comes to these editors, we track that, and the revision count. And of course, when we say revision count, people think that, oh, if you have more, it means that these guys move quicker. Not really. You would want to keep that as close to 0 as possible, because it means that every video that they push out is an automatic approve. In order for this to happen, number 4 is the feedback loop. You train them with the examples and not just explanations. You give them 3 examples of what a gold standard is of a specific output, and you give them 3 examples of do not do this. Do not do this type of edit or do not do this type of output, in order for them to know what's good, what's wrong, and how to incorporate that into their work. Because taste isn't something that they simply just get, all right? It's something that you teach them over time. And this is an example of us just giving the feedback time and time again with every video that they give us. And here's a pro tip. It is to provide more positive feedback than the negative ones, right? This allows them to continue doing the right actions time and time and time again. So if you've ever been an editor, you know the feeling of saying or hearing someone say, oh, there's just one quick edit, and then you go ahead and check the revision notes. There's like 10 comments of little tweaks that you would need to do. And it gets frustrating and tiring for the person that's doing all of the revisions. But if you add in all of these little positive feedback notes that they would get to read, then they know that they're not a complete shit editor and they're actually good at what they do. It's just that this is what it takes for the ramp up period. And of course, over time, as you do the hiring process, you will find people who are a good fit, and unfortunately, some people who just aren't good performers inside the team. So these are the red flags that I suggest you look at when you hire people for the production team. So number 1, they ask these same questions repeatedly, even though it's already stated in the SOP, right? If it's already in the SOP, you've answered that exact question and they've asked it to you multiple times, maybe it's not the best person or the brightest person in the room, and it might be a good time to start looking for another person who can take their role. Another could be their output is inconsistent week to week. So for us, it's actually better for an editor to give us 3 edits consistently every single week, instead of it being we get 5 this week and 6 next week, and then we only get 1 or 2 the next weeks after that, right? Because we'd rather have a clear understanding of how many videos to delegate to this person, instead of it being like a roll of the dice whether or not we're actually gonna get the video. And that is why you want to look for someone who's more on the consistent side, instead of like the bursts of action that these guys have when they have the motivation to actually make the task. Of course, lastly is they need you to start every task, meaning they have no autonomy. So for the team that we have, they typically let us know when all of the tasks that were assigned to them are about to end. They say something like, hey man, I'm about to finish this edit you gave me. There's nothing else lined up for me. Do you want me to go ahead and look into the footage bank, maybe get something up and running and send that over to you? Or do you have something in mind already? right? They have the autonomy to actually ask and take the initiative. And those are the A players that you want to look for. So the very simple fix here is to just have a better SOP, a better definition of what done and success looks like, and a clear ownership of their own tasks throughout the team. And these players typically win when the system is already built out. Don't bring them in when you're not even sure how to do the task yourself. Make sure you have a clear understanding of how you want it done, and they can execute at a high level. And of course, this would also attract A-player talent because they're not going to settle for a team who doesn't even know what they want. So in order to hire the right people onto the production team, I want you to look at these things because this determines whether or not your system actually works in reality or just on paper. To reiterate, at this level, you're not hiring for bright ideas or innovations. You want people who execute, who are reliable and are coachable. As I said, number one, you need to have someone who is coachable instead of just having sheer skill. You can teach skills over time, but you really cannot teach humility. It is a much tougher task to do because it's such a mental game instead of just an action game that it's tougher to get someone to actually adjust their own mindset into what you're looking for. You want someone who already has a good mindset, who's able to follow things properly, and then you can slowly build up the skills that you need from them. So you need to look for someone who is able to follow instructions precisely. They ask clarifying questions early during the onboarding questions, and they implement the feedback without having to feel defensive of like, oh, but this edit is good, maybe we should keep it, with no substance behind it, just because they want it to be done their own way. Right? You should avoid the people who want to do it their own way, who try to over-explain, oh man, I can't really do this week because of this and that, and all of these excuses, and then they end up pushing their creative opinions before they even earned your trust as they join the team, right? Let them prove themselves first, and then hear them out. Because at the end of the day, a coachable 7 out of 10 is better than someone who's a stubborn 9 out of 10, right? Given that the job at hand isn't really a technical heavy task, and even then I suggest you look for someone who is easier to work with. Number 2 is we have proof of execution and not just their potential. So a lot of people, when they first start hiring out, and I face this myself, I look at a person and I see their potential and end up keeping them on the team way longer than I should have. Right? And that costed me so much time, money, headache, stress that it just was not worth it. Okay, so don't ask what they can do, ask what they've already shipped, and if they've been on the team for a while, check what the output has been like and how it's been or how locked in they really are. If that's been the case for the past 3 months, it just is not worth the headache. Believe me, it is not worth the headache. What I suggest you do is to request 3 to 5 finished samples of the people you're about to hire, check their turnaround times within the first 2 weeks to a month, and check the previous client results that they've had, and see what the feedback of those previous clients were like. Okay? So the red flags here are typically the people who only have personal projects. There's a reason they can only show personal projects. They've never had a client before. They've never been on a team before. And sure, you can take a risk on those people, but definitely it would take a lot more effort on your end when it comes to the training on these guys. Next is there is no real deadlines they've met before throughout the time that they were working with you. And throughout the execution history that they have, you need to understand that that will predict their future execution. Meaning, if they've been failing the deadline for the past 2 weeks to a month working with you, you should expect that exact same thing to continue happening because it's only been the first month. And I understand that a lot of you guys might look at an editor or look at a person in the production team and think, this guy does the work well. It might be worth to keep him for a bit more. But even then, just because of all the delays and all of the headaches that you would have to face, it truly is just not worth it. And lastly, number 3, as I said earlier, was speed, responsiveness, and consistency. So once again, you need momentum in order for this to happen, right? You don't need perfection. You don't need the perfect output from day one, but you need someone who is able to be a reliable person inside the team from day one. You need to test how quickly they respond to your messages, their ability to be able to meet the deadlines that you set, and the comfort that they have when you give the feedback to them. So an example could be a trial task that you give someone before you even hire them, of giving them a raw clip, an SOP, and have them deliver it within the first 48 hours. And by doing things this way, through a trial task that we've been running for the editors that we hire, we have found some of the nastiest, craziest A players that you can imagine. I once sent a raw file with an SOP and had them basically edit it for 48 hours, and they got it in less than 12. That guy is now currently working on the team and actively working on the client edits. And believe me, he has been one of the best hires I've had for like a couple months now. And you want to keep looking for these people. That one hire is worth 5 other bad hires. If you continue to optimize and look at the way to play business of A players, then you can continue to scale much quicker than you currently are. So at the end of the day, consistency is the bedrock of any scaling system. When building your production team, you should prioritize the reliability over the unpredictable bursts of effort, and it's far more valuable to have an editor who consistently delivers 4 high-quality edits every single week, instead of the guy who just does 10 edits this week and only 2 the next. It's getting hot, bruh. Getting hot. So once you have the foundation built out, you probably have at least 1 or 2 editors for long form and short form. Maybe you have a VA or like a social media manager. From there, you would want to look into an operator, especially if the distribution that you have is bigger than most businesses. And that just means that you're playing at a different level. So operators, these guys make sure that the work actually gets done, right? So this is the role that sits between the production team or the execution layer and the founder. So they essentially manage the production team above, right? Their job is to turn the strategy that you have built out into the daily output without any friction. What the day-to-day of the operator should look like would be handling the execution across the team. It's the task assignments and the follow-ups, making sure that the tasks are actually done. It's enforcing the SOPs and the deadlines, quality checking everything before the founder even looks at anything, and keeping the production on schedule. So in order for an operator to actually be effective, they should create leverage. They should handle the people and not the tasks. Because these operators, they shouldn't be in the weeds, but rather just making sure that the team is running smoothly and consistently. So for example, when it comes to the operators, they know that the editors are handling the cutting, the revisions, the edits, the exports, right? If it's a social media manager, they know what tasks they do. If it's a VA, they know what they need to do. And essentially, they just make sure that these people on your team are actually doing their jobs. So just a manager, essentially. And they enforce these SOPs. They don't need to go ahead and reinvent them. They don't need to create the SOPs for you. They just need to make sure that it actually gets done. They make sure that any deviations that you might need are actually caught early. So you can either add that into the SOP or you go ahead and stop that from its tracks. They report the gaps that they find to the architect or the founder, whoever is fit in this scenario. And if an SOP eventually breaks twice, the operator once again escalates it and goes ahead and sends it for revision. From there, they make sure that they actually run the daily and weekly cadence of the business, right? They run the very rhythm, the heartbeat of the production pipeline. And this goes through every single project and of course the current status that they have. So what we have right now is essentially similar to what a sales team would typically have, which is the KPIs, and we have an end of day report. So every day we have a task check-in. We make sure that all of the blockers or any bottlenecks that they have would be brought up to us and what the plan of action for the specific person is the next day. And you would see here the amount of output that each player or each production team member is able to put out. And every single week, we're able to see how much is actually done throughout the entire time through the architect's systems, which I will go through in a bit. But this ensures that the entire team is actually efficient and on track. The operator is actually the first layer of quality checking. So they make sure that before it even gets to you, it's actually a good video, and all you need to do is just watch through it to make sure that it's approved as a final say. It also makes sure that it verifies the brand standards, it makes sure that all of the revisions are actually done, and only the exceptions to the rules where they actually need a second opinion from either you or the strategist or even the architect. But for the most part, you can essentially run your entire content's backend or post-production fully without even knowing what's happening. And this essentially protects your time from the daily grind of content, right? But the thing is, there are still going to be the red flags from hiring these people. Sometimes what happens is, instead of the operator being the person who chases the production team, making sure that everyone's aligned, what happens is you're the one who's chasing the operator and asking for the updates. Sometimes the tasks are unclear and you need to constantly re-explain it to them. Another could be the deadlines are consistently missed, even if there is a manager or an operator on the team. and everyone is busy, but nothing seems to get done throughout. So what you need to do is to clarify the ownership throughout everyone. What are the tasks for each person, and what should the operator be looking for from each production team member? You need to tighten up the SOPs and make sure it's actually enforced and followed through. And you install a visible execution dashboard. From there, most founders actually make the mistake of hiring an operator and expecting the strategy from them. What you need is to make sure you separate the two from each other, because this would create confusion. You would have to rework a lot of things, and there's just frustration overall. Which is why at stage 2, you would want a strategist, right? So these are the people who decide what to do and why you need to do it. And they're able to connect the execution that your production team does alongside the operator that manages it to the outcome that you are looking for your brand. So this role typically looks at what content actually converts, which ideas align with the brand, and what should be doubled down on and what you should stop posting. Strategists, they turn the effort that you do into the right direction, because these guys are the ones who are asking, what should we do next in order to get the business result that we are looking for? The strategist should own the content strategy that is tied to the revenue goal of the business. They know what the pillars, formats, and the lenses are for the business, which essentially is what gets made and why it needs to get made. They also have the right offer alignment, which means they know what the content is for and whether or not it matches what you're trying to sell to your audience. Next is the topic selection using the 5 stages of awareness, and of course the intent of the buyer, performance review, and iterations that you can see from the content performance itself, right? Not how do the editors perform, it's how does the content that you guys filmed, shot, and made, how does that perform on the algorithm, and how you're able to tie that back to the revenue of the business. So in order to make a strategist effective, you should start with the single business metric, which is a primary KPI. So for us, what we typically look at are the book calls, and from there we can then reverse engineer how we're able to get those book calls through the content. From there, you can actually see what content outperforms, not in views or likes or shares, but in terms of the revenue that you're able to generate from the book calls that you have. So you can build a content map using the pillars, formats, and lenses that we have, and from there you can then trace back the revenue that you would look for. And we even have an entire video about how to do ideation. This is just one of them, which is using the idea dump into a content map of pillars, formats, and lenses. If you want that, there's like a video over here that's gonna pop up. But this essentially prevents the randomness that you would feel and makes ideation both infinite and always aligned. And from there, you would run a weekly creative direction meeting. Based on the data that you've gathered from the previous content posted, what is the next best step? And you can take this from the data of your clients, from the people onboarded, from the sales calls, from the conversations that you've had on the IG DMs, from the setter, whatever. You can have all of that data and then have it all organized into a creative direction meeting so that you can continue to produce better content for the business. And we've even went ahead and made the full-on automation that scrapes our reels, our competitor reels, and puts it all into one nice Notion document where we can look at the IG report of what we can do better moving forward. So the strategist should always give directional feedback, not just the little nitpicks that you want. So for example, the hooks need to be more problem aware this week, or the topic should be more problem aware this week. We're pushing for more proof content that actually shows that we're good at the shit that we do. Or maybe it's to increase the pattern interrupts every 20 seconds throughout the specific short in order to boost the retention. They should have the strategy built out in order for the production team and the operator to just execute smoothly by taking in these instructions and executing from there. So the problem here is if your strategist is only trying to chase views and not actual business revenue, and they don't tie back their topics back to the offer that you're trying to sell, and all they're doing is trying to be viral for viral's sake, or they can't explain why this video should even exist onto your content ecosystem. So in order to fix this, you should make sure that every decision that you make is anchored to a KPI and back to the buyer's journey to buying your offer. And this is where most businesses stop because the founders always try to stay both. They try to become the operator and the strategist at the same time. But what happens is you just end up becoming busy trying to run everything by yourself. And that is the purpose of stage 3, because once you have an operator and a strategist, that's when you can start designing the system and optimizing it further. So these are the people that create the machine that keeps everything running even when you, the founder, actually disappears. And sometimes you would even go into this role for a bit once you have the operator and strategist. And I'll be honest, this is where I'm at right now. I am currently the architect of my own content agency. I'm building out the systems. I'm creating the automations, the SOPs, everything that we would need in order for things to run smoothly. And on top of that, when there are automations that I wouldn't know how to make, but I know it's a necessary thing and could help the business out to 2x, 3x, 5x the business. Once we have it, I can go ahead and build out the workflow on a sheet of paper or on a document, and I can then hire another person to do it for me. So what architects typically own are the SOPs, the AI-driven workflows, the automations, the tech integrations, everything that could really boost the efficiency and of course the productivity of the team. And the architect, these are the people that think in ecosystems, not just singular tasks. They think, if this worked without me for 90 days, what would have to happen in order for it to be true? So architects, they design the system, right? Going back, designing the system. The SOPs are typically written for humans, and they are triggered or started by the machines or the AI, right? The SOPs, they do not disappear, but they just become the decision layer that they would follow through. So for an example is AI would draft a script, but the SOP tells the strategist how to evaluate that script and make sure that it's approved or aligned with the brand's goals and the brand's tone. So we have an entire SOP matrix that we are slowly trying to improve, build out, that we're using, and of course our clients are able to use as well, because this just streamlines the process so much, especially once you're reaching the 20 to 30 months figures. You're gonna want to have your processes documented once you do the hiring processes out, not just even for content, but for having people inside the team in general. So typically AI would own the first 80% of the work, such as the research, the high volume tasks, having the start of the script, using the frameworks that we already have inside of the SOP matrix, using that title and variations of the hooks or whatever. We have everything already with AI, and we simply just optimize everything and screen everything to make sure that it's fit for what we're looking for. Because what happens is your team shouldn't start from zero, they actually start from 80% done, which allows you to get twice as much work done in a single day. And number three, you should have your own taste, your positioning, and the final judgment with the final 20%. Because this is what makes a difference from you becoming AI slop just like everyone else, and you actually making a difference because of your unique positioning and your unique tone. So you should decide which parts align with the brand, which one actually have the tone and the nuances, which ones are the bad ideas, and what are the final creative calls that you will make that AI cannot. At the end of the day, you should fall back into this singular rule as the architect of the team, or as the founder of the team who is serving as the architect. If a task is repetitive, it's predictable, or it's rules-based, AI should be the person to do it. But if it requires judgment, proper context, or even human taste, just the fact of your consumption and what you feel like would look good or sound good, then a human should be the one to do it. But at the end of the day, system success would typically test these following things. Right? What did AI handle that the team didn't touch at all? Where did the team add disproportionate value, meaning that just because this person was able to do this task, you were able to get 3x times the return on it? And what should be the move from the 20% into the next 80? From human tasks, you're moving over to AI tasks. And that's essentially how the systems evolve over time. The architect's outcome is what is done right. Content is able to get shipped faster, the quality improves, the team workload is able to drop drastically, and the founder exits the daily execution. And what happens is most founders never really step into these roles, right? And that is why their business typically collapses the moment they just step away. So this is how the roles work together. Number one, if you're an operator, you are running the system, making sure that all of the people on your team are able to do the tasks that they are assigned to. Next, if you're a strategist, you are the one who guides the system. Where are we trying to take the content next? What are we trying to get out of the content? What are the strategies that we're going to run this month in order to get this record month? And if you're an architect, you are the one who optimizes the system. You are the one who allows the operator and strategist to get more out of the work that they input, to get 2 times, 3 times, 5 times the output from each metric of work done. And scale only happens when each role here is clearly defined and actually respected throughout the team. So what would this mean for you? Well, if you're pretty early on the team, then your focus isn't even to build a team yet. It's simply to just build a foundation, to just learn the skill of content, and to just understand how to film consistently, how to script, and how to just ideate, create content that works for the business. At this stage, the only support that you should even look at is light leverage like an editor or even a VA to take the repetitive tasks off your plate. And until then, until you can finally explain to the person you're gonna hand off the task why it works, then you shouldn't even delegate it. If you're stuck at 10 to 15K per month, then this is where most people make the wrong hire. They typically hire more operators, they hire more editors, or they just try to do more posts. But the thing is, the output isn't the problem, it's just the direction. If you're stuck here, you don't need more doers. You just need someone who could be the strategist, someone who can clarify your positioning, your content pillars, your formats, and map out the content awareness from unaware to fully aware of your product and making sure that the content that you do actually aligns to your revenue. And if you are busy managing 10 to 15 hours of content with your team every single week, then it might be a good time for you to start looking into getting an operator or a manager to do everything for you in terms of taking over the ownership on the team. So if you're constantly checking work, you're chasing the updates, making sure that the questions are getting answered, or you're reviewing the edits and giving back the revisions, that really isn't your job. That shouldn't be your job. At this stage, you need an operator, someone who can manage the production layer, the execution team down below. And if you are scaling from 30K to 50K or even 100K per month, this is where execution and strategy no longer really the main leverage. It's the systems that you have inside of the business. Your focus should be shifted onto the SOPs, the automations, the integration of AI, the tool stacks, making sure that the roles in each part of the team is clear and there is no dependency on you anymore. The team just runs like clockwork. At this stage, scale doesn't happen from hiring more people. It comes from building a machine that doesn't need constant supervision. So most businesses, they don't really fail because of lack of talent, although that is a problem. They typically fail because everyone is just playing the wrong role. So once you understand the difference between the operator, the strategist, and the architect, you can actually start scaling and stop feeling like everything's so chaotic and start feeling that things are actually intentional and moving forward. So if you want help designing these systems, these roles, building out an entire content infrastructure for you that lets your business scale without you being in the day-to-day, then just click the first link in the description below, book a call with my team, and we'll help you figure out what role you're stuck in and how to move up without breaking everything that you've built in the past. See you there.